Welcome to Still Having Fun with your old buddy Bob K. On this first episode, we sit down with former Disney Corporate Vice President of Global Special Events, Bryan Wittman. The question, how did Disney become Disney? So ladies and gentlemen, this is the inaugural launch of Still Having Fun with yours truly. And to do this right, I wanted to bring on, since my first line of videos all are, of course, at the Magic Kingdom, which is near and dear to so many people's hearts. And I have with me a gentleman, a West New York native, Bryan Wittman, who was at the top of the rung in the Disney Corporation for so many years, a Hamburg boy, went to St. Francis High School, Ashland College, earned his teeth, so to speak, at the Erie County Fair. And you were at Darien Lake and Six Flags and the Ice Capades. And then you got called, or you called them, Disney, and said, hey, guys, I think I can help the mouse, right?
Correct.
And so you started in Disney, what, 83?
I started in 1985 at Disney in Florida. And they actually called and recruited me. They tracked me down. I was working in Chicago for Marriott Theme Parks. And we were doing very well there, and I got to know a lot of folks, and they're all, owned and operated stations in Chicago. And the television station guys knew the Disney guys, and my name came up in a conversation. I got a phone call. Next thing, I was in Orlando and interviewed one day and got a job offer at the end of the day. So it was pretty quick.
So how many years were you with Disney?
30 years.
30 years with Disney. Now you've got your own business, Dry Creek.
Dry Creek Group, yes. We're a full-service marketing company right here in Buffalo, and it's a marketing consulting group. And we have got a number of clients here, and it's a lot of fun right now to take all my Disney knowledge and experience and bring that back to Buffalo and help out companies.
Before we get, now we've already laid out your bio, and we'll get into some of the incidentals a little later on. But I just got back from the Magic Kingdom. I'm getting into the world of vlogs. It's not going to strictly be a Disney vlog, but there's few categories that are on social media more popular than Disney. And there's vloggers making great livings just doing nothing but covering the theme parks at Disney. So I guess my first question, Bryan, and maybe this is just a simple question and there's a simple answer, but how has Disney created this almost cult-like following from millions and millions of people?
I think it's real simple. Everybody wants to know how Disney does it and how they can go every day to a Disney theme park, go to a cruise line, go see one of the great movies, and go there and have this magical experience, be transformed into another world, and just feel so much better about their lives, themselves, and see a whole good, beautiful world just by going and experiencing Disney somehow, some way. And that transformation into another world doesn't happen anywhere else except when you're really experiencing Disney. So that's part of it, is that transformational experience. The other part of it is, how do they do all this? Like, how do they create these great fireworks shows? How do they create these great parades? How do the buildings always look so beautiful? How come the place is so clean? How come every flower is at full bloom? How come the Christmas tree, it's up right now, smells so great? Like, there's all these things as you walk through a park that just takes you to a whole nother world, and you kind of put your life and challenges and issues, whatever it's going on in your life at the time, that kind of goes in the bottom of the list for the day. And for a day, a week, or whatever experience you're having, you're in another world, and it's a wonderful world. Food's great, and different food, fun foods, different entertainment, fun stuff to buy that you wouldn't normally find somewhere else, and it's such high quality, experiences and things. So people just love it. And Disney works very hard, and worked very hard to hit that bar every day.
So I'm a little bit older than you, but basically the baby boomers were the first generation that were pitched Disney by Walt and embraced Disney. Now, I grew up as a young boy. I watched the Mickey Mouse Club, black and white TV.
Yep.
I watched the Davy Crockett show.
Sure.
And then, of course, you had the Sunday night magic, World of Color.
It was actually called Disneyland when it first started. It was the Disneyland TV show, and then turned into the Magical World of Disney, and then the Wonderful World of Color. And yes, and that's come back on and off for many, many years.
So my first trip was to Disneyland in 1964 with my grandmother, my 60-some-year-old Italian grandmother, visiting an aunt and uncle out there in Anaheim, California. And my first impression walking into Disneyland was I thought it was so much smaller than it looked on television. And that is always the case. I mean, people look bigger on TV than when you see them in person. But it didn't take long for me being there to completely get absorbed. And back then that's where they got the line, the e-ticket, because you didn't pay an admission. You just bought individual tickets.
Correct.
And the best rides took more expensive tickets, and you kind of planned your day around that.
Correct.
So
Correct.
Disneyland was my first experience, but I never made it to the parks in Florida until 1989. It was a surprise anniversary present for my lovely wife, Mary. And we went down there and I saw it firsthand. And then, of course, I was hook, line, and sinker like everybody else. And then for so many years, through my contacts, like you, we got passes. We went down with the boys, and everybody's got great memories. And now Disney has upped the game, because between their Disney Channel and their social media, my grandchildren, the ones that are 2 or 3 that can absorb television, they're completely Disney fanatics.
Yeah.
So their marketing has always been the best in the business.
It has been, and as the leader of the marketing for many years, I was based in California and at Burbank at the corporate headquarters, and offices in Anaheim and Orlando, and I worked all over the world, and it's the hours we spent on marketing strategies and marketing creative. You really had to do things that were bigger and better than everybody else, and they had to be leading edge things, and things that nobody else would ever think of, or things people would never do. We had a bar to hit every day, and it is a lot of great marketing. And the marketing, I'm not, I'll take some credit for the 30 years I was there, but it was, before I got there, the marketing was great. And after I've left, the marketing's continued to be great. And we know how to grab those young kids at babies, with the baby items, and kind of keep this multi-generational for most of their lives. And so you come, your babies come, your kids come, then their kids come, and then your grandkids come. And there's just a great time to always go to Disney, and you market to all these different audiences with products that these people would want. So it's really, it's quite an amazing feat to kind of have to do that every day, but we had fun doing it too.
Now, I know that you've been involved in a number of big film launches. It seemed like you almost always used one of the theme parks to launch the promotion. Yes?
If there was a connection to the film. So when I worked on 4 Pirates of the Caribbean premieres with Johnny Depp and that whole crew, and we did that because we had the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, so that made sense. And then anytime there became big launches, in Princess Diaries, we would do the parks, the Lone Ranger movie that we did years ago that didn't do very well, but we do launch that. We've done a lot of them at the parks, but we've also done them, in Times Square. We've done premieres on Fifth Avenue. We've done giant premieres in Central Park. We've done them on aircraft carriers. We've done them in Hawaii for Pearl Harbor. The movie was done at Pearl Harbor, and so we do movie premieres
all over the world, yeah.
And they're giant, huge events with a lot of work and a lot of moving parts. But the publicity and awareness and promotion those generate is amazing.
But really, when you stop and think about it, it's probably the only theme park group in the world that you've had films basically produced based on the rides in the theme park. Pirates of the Caribbean, Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion.
Haunted Mansion's been out as a movie, yeah.
So it's amazing they never did It's a Small World film.
Not yet, but could be coming. Tomorrowland was a film that came out. There's been a genre where a lot of those came out, and some did well, some did okay. I mean, they all do fairly well, just some do bigger than others.
So you worked for Disney. You were based both in Anaheim, you were in Florida. I know you had places in both. You were one of the most popular guys in Western New York because of your Disney connections. So tell me a few stories At what point, so you're working for Disney, there had to be moments where you said, you almost pinched yourself, like, how did this kid from Hamburg, New York, who got his start at the Erie County Fair, this event that I am now running or at or attending, like, how did I get here?
It's really interesting that you bring that up. It's not the answer you're probably going to want, but every day was so exciting and so interesting and so fast paced. When I started Disney, Disney was a $5 billion company, which sounds like a lot of money, but in the corporate world and the Hollywood world, that's not a lot of money. It's a value of the company, and it was struggling. It was not doing well. It was 1985. There was not a lot of good content. The parks didn't have new rides, new attractions. Financially, Disney was struggling a little bit and not able to invest into the parks. And there was no great new movie. The movies weren't doing well during the 70s and 80s. There weren't a lot of good films, and they weren't creating films that we could put content into the park. So we, when I got there, we were so busy, and we had new chairman and new COO, and we opened the floodgates of new content, new creativity. Every day had to be a new big idea. Everything had to be something great. And we did so many things every day all over the world that, Bob, it was a blur for 30 years. It was like I was on an e-ticket ride. Because I got in, I used to make a joke. I'd walk in the mornings. I'd be in my office at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was in early. I was on the West Coast, so I was already mid-mornings on the East Coast, and it was, midday in Paris, which I had responsibilities for. So I always made a joke. Once I got in my office, I'd buckle up for the day and just hang on, and because we did so much stuff, it was crazy. But I think, I part of me says I never really stopped to just say, "Oh wow, look at this," because I was going so fast and we moved so fast. And 30 years went by like that. And by the way, we grew the company to, it's probably about $200 billion probably today. So there's a lot of growth.
Right.
There are $95 billion of growth during part of the time. When I left, it was $185 billion. Today it's $200 billion. So Disney's growing and done very, very well, obviously. But I don't know. There were so many great, I guess, I tell you what, there was the one moment that I you'll like this. I had one moment as I'm thinking through this a little bit, that I kind of did. And it was on July 17th in 2005. And it was the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. And we had a giant 3-day event we were doing, and media from all over the world, 1,000 press people there. It was crazy. We had events and parties and shows and unveilings of new attractions and parades. Oh my, it was nuts. The biggest thing we've ever done. And the morning of July 17th, 2005, which is the exact 50 years to the date that Disneyland opened, I was in the backstage, and I walked out through the castle onto Main Street, and it was at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was one of the only people there. We had an early walkthrough and rehearsals, and I got there before anybody else, and I'm walking through the park going, the last guy to do a giant opening like this for Disneyland was Walt 50 years ago, and he walked, but there's a great, very famous painting of Walt walking out of the castle on July 17th that morning, and I'm like, oh, man, I'm doing the same thing right now. Same thing Walt did 50 years ago. He opened it 50 years ago, and I'm the guy that's kind of rededicating it and celebrating it 50 years later. Pretty cool. That's a cool handoff. So I stopped up by and said, "Thanks, Walt," and I kept walking.
So you brought his name up, and Walt Disney, and it's incredible to me that his name alone, Disney, just represents magic, right?
Yeah,
the name itself.
It does.
So Walt more than once, several times, rolled the dice, put his house up. I mean,
oh yeah,
really risked financial disaster
to
do what he wanted to do, not just with the theme parks, but early on in his film work.
Film works as well. That's where it started. Was with films,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And his brother basically was
Roy
was the break, right, on the money.
Yes.
And obviously you never got a chance to meet Walt because he passed almost 20 years before you started.
Yeah.
But yet his presence was, you had told me his presence was still in many of your organizational meetings.
It was. And I have two answers to that question. One is it still did when I left, up until when I left. I'm sure they're still doing it today, but we would sit in a lot of meetings and talk about new ideas, new creative, new new things to go do. Should we buy Lucasfilms? Should we buy Pixar? Should we? I mean, we had to think about all these things back then. They're common to Disney today. Do you buy Marvel? Whatever. And at the end of these meetings, we very often stop and look around the room and say, okay, guys, if Walt was here today, what would Walt do? And it was a very common internal line was, what would Walt do? And would Walt really do this today if he was here? Would he not? And we greenlit and stopped numerous projects because Walt just wouldn't, this wouldn't be a Walt thing. Or it would, is buying Lucas the right thing to do? Well, no, buying Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Star Wars stuff, that's not very Disney. Well, but it's creative content and it's really good content and it's family entertainment and there's nothing wrong with it. I bet if Walt was here today, he would buy that, and we have a partnership with George Lucas. So, we did have that discussion and it did do a lot. And the second part I was telling you about this is Walt Disney's nephew, Roy Disney, who was his brother's son, and Roy was very involved with the company at the time that I was there. And Roy looked like his Uncle Walt. And in meetings, he would often, talk about, well, if Uncle Walt was here or my Uncle Walt. So that gave me a great connection to Walt Disney through Roy. And I got to know he and his wife very, very well and spent many, many hours of meetings with him. And he was kind of running the animation division at the time and bringing back kind of new juice in the animation group. But I have a lot of great memories of working with Roy. And again, it's a great connection to Walt.
Would you say that the top thinkers always respected Walt's legacy?
No, not always. I mean, there's controversy. I mean, anytime you've got a high-profile, very aggressive, creative company, and Disney's a creative content company. I mean, that's what it is. And you're never going to get total alignment. And, you hear stories of people that left Disney because they didn't like the storyline, they didn't like the creative, whatever, that management's always involved. Yeah, that's true. It is. I mean, I was on both sides of it a lot. And, but you kind of push that so that you can end up with a great product. And is everything Disney do perfect? No, not at all. It makes mistakes. A lot of companies do, but Disney was always quick to fix mistakes and try to do the right thing.
What did you learn at the Erie County Fair that you're able to parlay into your job at Disney? Anything?
Work your butt off and you work really hard. I started at the outdoor theater on the Avenue Flags in 1976. I'll be celebrating my 50th anniversary of my fair days this coming summer, and I started there working with Indigo Productions and Joe Romanowski, who I still work with today, in doing sound and lighting and assisting the bands and the dancers and all the groups that would come in to perform there. And it taught me the business from the ground up. And I learned how we have to work hard. I work a lot of hours, and I learned that I love the entertainment business. And when I got into the Disney time and the big shows and giant concerts and whatever stuff we would do, I always could pay attention to the small detail of that sound's not right, the light's not right. And hey, lighting guys, I know you can do this. Hey, sound guys, I know we can do this. It gave me a great ground level introduction to the business. And that always, I think, helped me in my career that I could, get along with these guys and communicate with these other teams. And I learned from the ground up.
I know you were very close with your mom. Your mom was very proud of your career. I know that you've had relatives and friends you've parlayed those relationships into bringing them into the parks and sharing your Disney experience with them. So when you had family or somebody who wanted to go to the parks, what were your recommendations? What you knew the place inside and out. What to really enjoy Disney? What would you pitch to them?
Well, I'd tell them all to come early and be prepared for a long day. I would have the insight to say, I'd then make sure you get on these rides or see these shows, or don't miss the fireworks show at night. I still do today. I had a friend that I met in a meeting the other day, and she was going to Disney the next day. And I said, "Oh, where are you going? What's your agenda? Are you going to go do this?
Right.
Don't miss this, don't miss that. And so I still do it, but I love giving recommendations to people because I know kind of, where the e-tickets are today and things not to miss. And I hate when I talk to somebody that said, I just spent a week at Disney. I go, oh, did you go on the new Ratatouille ride? No, where was that? We didn't know about that. Well, I wish we would have talked because I tell you got to go to France and Epcot, and it's a great attraction. Well, they didn't know that. So I love giving people some ideas and help them with their itinerary planning.
So you're married. You've been back to Disney, right? With your family now. Have you gone to the parks?
So I have not. I've spent almost every day of my life for 30 years in the parks, on the cruise ships, at movie premieres.
That's your idea of a vacation, huh?
And my wife goes, she takes our kids, she takes our grandkids. It's a lot of running around, and I'd be a hard audience today. I know it's so much from the inside, and I get it. I love Disney. I respect it. I think they're all doing an amazing job today. But for me to go, it would be hard for me to go and just enjoy it because I wasn't a theme park goer. I was a theme park marketer and I managed all that business. So it was always coming into the parks, trying to create something new, fix something, whatever. So I couldn't go through it with a normal eye. So it'd be very hard to go enjoy. And I have so many memories of every inch of every park around the world. So every footstep I take, I go, okay, so let me tell you the story when I was here back in 1994 and that I'd have all these stories. And they're like, no, they want to go ride the rides. So they don't want to hear all my stories. So I get it. I understand.
I believe me, I lived that life too.
Yes, yeah.
So I know you're aware of the countless amount of vloggers who have now made Disney their subject. I know you've watched them, sampled them. That wasn't always readily accepted by the company, was it?
Not at all. In fact, I was there during the time when social media was just starting to come into play. Now, hard to believe that, but if you go back, 20 years ago, it didn't exist like it does today. So we dealt with radio stations, television stations, and newspapers. And that was what the marketing mediums were back then. And then all of a sudden, people started coming in with, websites and Facebook and whatever, and they wanted to come, and we're like, no, that's not, we didn't, recognize that as a respectable marketing medium. And we would not let them come to big events or come to big media events. We thought they have access that others don't have. They're telling different stories. They're longer format. They can tell longer stories. And it wasn't always favorable to Disney. So, and we were scared of it. We couldn't control it. And I think over the years, to Disney's credit, they've learned how to embrace that and now welcome that group in. And if you go to any major events that Disney does anymore, I bet half of the media groups all vloggers and people with websites and the internet. And I saw they just did something with Mr. Beast, and they embraced Mr. Beast, and he's did something with Disney. I mean, how cool is that? That never would have happened years ago. So,
well, it's amazing to me.
Pretty smart.
It's amazing to me, and I've done some that I'll end up posting. But people love videos of just walking the park, just walking the park and hearing the sounds of the park and hearing the people talking. And Disney has definitely set down, ground rules, which you can and can't do. Right. And there have been people who've been barred for life because they've broken those rules.
Exactly.
And Disney definitely has a system of being able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, your fingerprint when you go in, it's scary in a way, but they have a way to police that. So I don't know where it will end up going. I know that, as you said, there are people that are doing very well with basically Disney and theme parks in general. Being their subject matter. And I guess it's because people, and Walt recognized this decades and decades ago, people are looking for escapism from their everyday life.
They are, and I think to the credit of Disney embracing all of these new media, digital media groups is at Disney as a whole now, Disney company, there is so much to talk about. Every day with from restaurants to merchandise to new shows to new fireworks shows to new cruise ships recently there's so much that how do you get all this information out? and it's all on the Disney website, which you go to eventually. But
Right.
how do you promote all this stuff? And I think the great value of today is as marketing consumers, we are being able to learn so much more about all the great things that Disney has to offer and to do around the world just by going on our phone at night and, swiping away. And all of a sudden, I didn't know this. I mean, you're learning stuff. I learn stuff every day about Disney that I don't always know about from my channels. So I think it's great. It's great for consumers. You're going into the parks of the cruise line or you're going into a film so much more educated on what to expect and what to do, that I think there's a lot of great value to it.
So I don't want to wrap this up without mentioning we are at the famous Chef's Italian Restaurant in Buffalo, New York. You've been lifelong family, friends with the Billetiers. And, this could have been shot at Tony's Italian Restaurant in Town Square in Disney World. But we're at Chef's, and I know you've had many meals here, so I want to thank Louis and Mary Beth Billetier for being able to shoot this here. And I want to hope you have great holidays. I know that's always big. I was down there last week, and Disney's all decorated for Christmas and the holidays, and every resort almost has something that represents the holidays, so it's a big time. Bryan, thanks so much for sharing your time and your memories with me today.
Thanks, Bob. Great to be here.
That's going to do it, and start checking out Still Having Fun with yours truly, because there'll be regular posts, and you'll see all of my great trips down to Disney World and other great spots that I still like having fun at.